Rain streaked down the cafe windows like tears, blurring the city lights into watercolor smudges of amber and gold. Inside Morrison's coffee house, the warmth felt almost suffocating to Jonathan Pierce. As he sat alone at his usual corner table, at 54, he'd grown accustomed to solitude, though he'd never quite made peace with it. The cafe hummed with the gentle sounds of late afternoon, the hiss of the espresso machine, the murmur of conversation, the soft jazz playing through overhead speakers. Jonathan sat with his coffee growing cold, his phone face down on the table, deliberately ignoring the dozens of messages and calls that had accumulated throughout the day. Board meetings, merger proposals, crisis management, the endless demands of running Pierce Industries, the technology empire he'd built over 30 years. He stared at his reflection in the darkening window. Dark hair touched with silver at the temples, carefully groomed, an expensive charcoal suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. The face of success, his business magazines liked to say, what they couldn't photograph was the emptiness that had settled into his bones like winter frost. His wife, Rachel, had left 2 years ago, finally tired of coming second to his company. "You married your business long before you married me," she'd said on her way out. She hadn't been wrong. Their daughter Emily had sided with her mother, and Jonathan couldn't blame her. He'd missed too many recitals, too many birthdays, too many moments that could never be reclaimed. Now Emily was 23, living across the country, and their conversations had dwindled to awkward phone calls every few months. He'd gained the world and lost his family in the process. The old cliché played out in his life with painful accuracy. Jonathan picked up his coffee cup, realized it was empty, and set it back down. He should go back to the office. There was always more work to do. But something kept him in his chair, watching the rain, feeling the weight of his loneliness like a physical thing. "Excuse me, sir?" The small voice startled him from his thoughts. Jonathan looked down to find a little girl standing beside his table, no more than 5 years old. She had platinum blonde hair pulled up in a high ponytail with a pink bow, and she wore a coral-colored dress over a long-sleeved pink shirt. Her blue eyes studied him with the kind of direct, uncomplicated concern that only children possess. "Are you okay, sir?" she asked, her head tilted slightly. "You look sad." Jonathan blinked, momentarily at a loss. When was the last time anyone had asked him how he was feeling? When was the last time anyone had looked past the suit and the title to see the person underneath? He started, then stopped. He'd been about to offer an automatic reassurance, the kind of polite dismissal adults give children, but something in her earnest expression made him reconsider. "I'm a little lonely today," he admitted. "But that's very kind of you to ask." The little girl smiled, revealing a gap where a front tooth was missing. "My mommy says that when people are sad, sometimes they need a friend. Would you like to be my friend? I'm having cookies." She held up a chocolate chip cookie as evidence, one small bite already taken from its edge. Despite everything, Jonathan felt a smile tugging at his lips. The first genuine smile he'd managed in days. "That's a very nice cookie. Did your mommy buy it for you?" "Uh-huh. She's right over there." The girl pointed to a table near the counter where a young woman, with light brown hair, sat, focused on a laptop. Even from this distance, Jonathan could see the worry lines on her face, the tension in her shoulders. She wore simple jeans and a cream-colored sweater, her appearance as unpretentious as her daughter's approach had been. "What's your name?" Jonathan asked. "Sophie," the girl announced proudly. "Sophie Ann Richardson. I'm 5 years old." "What's your name?" "I'm Jonathan." "It's very nice to meet you, Sophie." "That's a long name," Sophie observed seriously. "Can I call you Mr. John?" Jonathan felt his smile widen. "You can call me John if you'd like." "Okay, Mr. John." Sophie climbed up onto the chair across from him without invitation, settling in as if they'd been friends for years. "Do you come here a lot?" "I never saw you before." "I do, actually," Jonathan said. "Almost every day after work. I like the quiet. Me and Mommy come here too, but usually earlier. Mommy works here sometimes when I'm at school, 'cause our internet at home doesn't work good." Sophie took another bite of her cookie, chewing thoughtfully. "Do you have a job?" "I do. I work with computers and technology." "That sounds boring," Sophie said with the brutal honesty of childhood. "I want to be a veterinarian when I grow up." I really, really love animals, especially dogs. Do you have a dog? No, I don't have any pets, Jonathan said, feeling another pang of loss. Rachel had always wanted a dog. He'd always been too busy, too concerned about travel schedules and the inconvenience of pet ownership. That's sad, Sophie declared. Everybody should have a dog. They make you happy when you're lonely. She paused, her expression becoming more serious. Are you lonely a lot, Mr. John? The question hit harder than it should have, asked in that innocent, caring voice. Yes, Jonathan admitted quietly. I am. Sophie, sweetheart, you can't just bother people like that. The woman from the other table had finally noticed her daughter's absence and hurried over, embarrassment coloring her cheeks. I'm so sorry, sir. She's very friendly, and I was distracted with work. Sophie, come back to our table, please. But, Mommy, Mr. John is lonely, Sophie protested. He needs a friend. The woman, Sophie's mother, looked at Jonathan properly for the first time, and he saw recognition flicker in her eyes. Not the kind that meant she knew him personally, but the kind that suggested she'd seen his face in business sections or news articles. Her expression shifted to something more guarded. I appreciate your concern, honey, but I'm sure this gentleman has places to be, she said gently but firmly. To Jonathan, she added, Again, I'm very sorry for the interruption. Please don't apologize, Jonathan said quickly, surprising himself with how much he meant it. Sophie's been wonderful company. She's a very kind young lady. The woman's expression softened slightly. She certainly has a big heart. She held out her hand to her daughter. Come on, sweetheart. Let Mr. Pierce, Jonathan Pierce. He stood, extending his hand. But your daughter calls me Mr. John, which I rather prefer. Melissa Richardson, she said, shaking his hand briefly. Her grip was firm, but her hand was work rough, the hands of someone who did more than type on keyboards. Come on, Sophie. Let's let Mr. Pierce enjoy his coffee in peace. But he's lonely, Mommy, Sophie repeated, her lower lip jutting out. And his coffee is all gone. Can we share our cookies with him? Melissa looked torn between mortification and something else. Perhaps recognition of the loneliness her daughter had so accurately identified. Sophie, that's not how we— It's all right, Jonathan interrupted gently. He looked at Sophie. Thank you for offering to share your cookies. That's very generous, but I think your mommy's right. You should go back to your table. I've enjoyed talking with you very much, though. Sophie looked disappointed but nodded. Okay, but if you're still lonely, we'll be right over there. She pointed back to their table. You can come visit if you want. As Melissa led Sophie back to their table, Jonathan found himself unable to sit back down. He watched them settle, Sophie chattering away, while her mother tried to refocus on her laptop, occasionally glancing over with an expression that mixed wariness with something that might have been curiosity. Jonathan made a decision. He walked to the counter, ordered 2 hot chocolates with extra whipped cream and a fresh plate of cookies, then carried them over to Melissa's table. I hope this isn't too forward, he said, setting the treats down. But I thought Sophie might enjoy a hot chocolate on a rainy day like this. And I realized I'd be honored to share those cookies she offered. If the invitation's still open. Sophie's face lit up like sunrise. Mommy, can Mr. John sit with us? Melissa looked up at Jonathan, and he could see her weighing the situation. A wealthy stranger wanting to sit with her and her daughter. It should raise red flags. But something in his expression must have reassured her, or perhaps it was the genuine loneliness Sophie had identified, visible now that Melissa was really looking. Please, Jonathan added quietly. I know how it looks, but your daughter is the first person in a very long time who's asked me if I'm okay and actually meant it. I'd just like to say thank you properly. I promise I'm harmless. Melissa studied him for another moment, then nodded slowly. All right, but we can't stay too long. I need to finish this project proposal by tonight. I won't keep you, Jonathan promised, settling into the chair across from them. What kind of project? As Sophie happily dove into her hot chocolate, Melissa explained that she was a freelance graphic designer, trying to build a client base while raising Sophie alone. Her husband had died 3 years ago, a heart condition no one knew he had until it was too late. She worked whatever job she could find, often bringing Sophie along to cafes, because childcare was expensive and their home internet was unreliable. It's not the life I imagined, Melissa said. her fingers wrapped around the hot chocolate Jonathan had brought. But we manage. Sophie's happy, and that's what matters. She seems like a remarkable little girl, Jonathan said, watching as Sophie used a spoon to fish out whipped cream. Her concentration absolute. She is, Melissa agreed, her voice warming with maternal pride. She has this gift for seeing people, really seeing them. She's always been that way, even as a toddler. She'll walk right up to someone who looks sad and try to make them feel better.